while cycling in what police believe was an intentional act by Ayala and Keyes.
Unsuccessful.
The courtroom was tense as the judge attempted to proceed with the hearing, only to be met with the defendant's continued disrespect. Here's what Taylor Probst, the victim's daughter, had to say. These guys did not respect the court whatsoever. They were just dicking around the entire time. They were flipping us off. How can you sit there after taking a man's life and act like such an entitled prick? Amidst this mockery, nothing seemed to be able to stop them. The judge seemed oblivious to their actions.
What's your position on those two, I'm using failed, in quotes, attempts that he references in his report, that there were two attempted buys with the defendant and that they didn't occur? I don't know.
The trial date is set for September 16th, 2024. Video evidence recorded by the defendants shows the horrifying murder in detail. They might not find it so amusing when they end up in prison. This cold-blooded killing of a senior was one thing, but our next teen took the life of another child in a case that devastated an entire community. In a Florida courtroom, Aiden Fucci faced the ultimate consequence for his actions. Convicted of the brutal murder of 13-year-old Tristan Bailey, Fucci received a life sentence, a moment that was met with his emotionless demeanor. As the judge detailed the horrific nature of the crime, Fucci stood stone-faced without visible reaction.
Your Honor, on behalf of Aiden Fucci, we enter a change of plea at this time. Entering a guilty plea as charged.
Fucci's silence seems to be of a young man who has decided to take responsibility for his heinous actions.
Yes, Your Honor, he's facing a possible sentence of life imprisonment. The mandatory minimum would be 40 years. So, similar to after trial, the range of exposure is 40 to life.
Yes, Your Honor.
The judge seems hardly able to believe this change. He wants to make sure Fucci is clear about the consequence of a guilty plea.
You feel clear-headed and clear-minded about what's going on here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Fucci, is it your desire to enter a plea of guilty to one count of first-degree murder?
Yes, sir.
After this stunning change of plea, we switch to a later date to hear the judge's summation and the critical moment, the sentencing. How will Fucci react?
I would submit that this case is probably the most difficult and shocking case that this county and St. Johns County has dealt with. In the 20 years that I have been, or 16 years that I have been practicing law, and the 30 years that I have lived and worked in this all of Northeast Florida.
Even as the gruesome details of the killing were read out, Fucci remained unmoved.
114 stab wounds, 49 defensive wounds, 35 wounds to the head and neck, 29 to the back and shoulder, and 6 fatal wounds. She suffered a painful, horrifying death from someone that she trusted.
In a small show of emotion, Fucci bows his head in recognition of his shocking crime.
He indicated that he was going to kill someone, at which point he determined that it was going to be Tristan Bailey.
Here we see a shake of the head from Fucci, to himself, to the judge, or to a higher power. We may never know.
It was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense for moral or legal justification.
Now, head fully bowed, he faces the sentencing.
Mr. Fucci, if you and your attorneys would please rise. Counsel, is there any legal reason why this court cannot impose sentence at this time?
No, sir.
Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristan Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison.
As Fucci prepares for a life behind bars, the community continues to grapple with the loss of Tristan Bailey. This shockingly violent case will long live in their memory. If Fucci is an example of premeditated and cold-blooded murder, our next case shows that recklessness can have equally damaging consequences.